It's finally time for me to apply for a high-end travel card, but it's actually going to be my wife Lucia who's going to be applying live for the Capital One Venture Rex and seeing if we can add this card to our two-player setup. So in this video, I'm going to go over our exact rationale for why we are applying for the Capital One Venture Rex and why it makes a ton of sense for us to apply at this exact moment to get additional value from the Venture X. And then also, I'll be showing you the entire application from start to finish, including Capital One's pre-approval process, so that this video can hopefully help you succeed on your Capital One Venture Rex application as well. Real quick, if you do enjoy videos just like this one, then do me a huge favor and hit that like button and check if you're subscribed, because doing so is a free and easy way to help support my channel, and I really appreciate it. Okay, now let's get into our rationale for exactly why we want to add the Capital One Venture X to our two-player setup in the first place. The Venture X has been a card that I've had my eyes on for a while now because it's such a simple and straightforward card to get value from. With the $300 annual travel credit and the 10,000 bonus miles that you get on your card member anniversary every year, which would give you a minimum value of like $100, meaning that those two benefits alone would give you $400 in value, or in other words, more value than the annual fee. Lucia and I are on team travel, and our goal is to pretty much travel to as many places as possible and as often as possible. So I actually think it's gonna be pretty easy for us to consistently utilize that $300 travel credit every single year. And again, even though there's a ton of other benefits on the Venture X, utilizing that $300 travel credit is pretty much all we need to do every year to make sure that we're getting positive value from the card. Since we'll value those 10,000 bonus miles at least $100, and we'll save up those miles for some future travel redemptions. Okay, so obviously we've had our eyes on the Venture X for a while now, but why are we applying for this card at this exact moment? Well, we are actually traveling to Panama and Colombia this month, and we actually might be there right now while you're watching this video. So go ahead and drop the Panama and Colombia flag emojis down in the comments. But due to those travel plans, we have a really easy way to maximize the $300 travel credit on the Venture X. Since we are utilizing points for most of the longer flights, but we could easily utilize this $300 travel credit for some of those shorter flights, so from like Panama to Colombia, or for some of the one-off hotel stays that we'll have during the duration of this trip. Additionally, the Venture X all of a sudden made a lot of sense to get right now due to needing to pivot around some of those travel plans. Essentially, we were gonna fly out of Houston to go to Panama City on United Business Class so that we could go to the United Polaris Lounge before our flight. But I recently found out that flying United Business Class on flights that are operated from the US to Mexico, Central America, and Northern South America actually do not qualify you to go to a United Polaris Lounge, which is a huge bummer. With that said, we now have the flexibility to choose to fly out of a lot of different US major cities. So we're thinking of flying out from Washington D.C. to Panama City because there's a good flight that's direct and it leaves at a good time. And what does the Washington D.C. airport have? Well, it's got a new Capital One lounge. So this turned out to be perfect timing for us to get the Capital One Venture X, since not only do we have a specific situation where we'll be able to utilize the $300 annual travel credit, but we'll also be flying out of Washington, D.C. twice, once on the way to Panama City and then once on the way back to Seattle, meaning that both Lucia and I will be able to go to this brand new, really nice Capital One lounge twice. And I'd equate that to like $80 in value when you consider that we'd probably get a value of like $20 per person per visit. Additionally, we won't be needing a rental car for our Panama and Colombia trip, but I could definitely see some situations where the Hertz President Circle status that we get on our Venture X could come in handy for car rentals. Next, another question that might naturally come up is, why did Lucia apply for this card instead of myself? Well, I did talk about this a lot more in my 2024 credit card strategy video, but essentially I just recently came down under 524, so I'm finally able to get Chase credit cards again. I took advantage of this by getting the Chase Sync Unlimited, since it's a business card, so it will further extend my window of being under 524. And my goal is to continue to extend that window, so prioritizing business credit cards. I then get all the other Chase credit cards that I want to get first to take advantage of being under 524. By the way, if you don't know what I'm talking about here, the Chase 524 rule states that you will not be approved for a new Chase credit card if you've opened 5 or more personal credit cards in the last 24 months. With that said, the Capital One Venture X would basically be the opposite of this strategy, since it's not a Chase or a business card. So similar to Lucia getting the City Custom Cash and the Built cards in the past while I was gardening my 524 status, I'm super grateful that we have such a strong two-player setup and that she's willing to be such an active participant in the credit card game, because her getting the Venture X for our travel plans while I further extend my 524 window works out really well. Okay, so now before we go over the entire application process, which is going to start with Capital One's pre-approval process. Let's briefly go over Lucia's data points. So she has a pretty good credit score, sitting in the mid 700s right now, and she applied for the Capital One Saver 1 back in May of 2022, which actually works out well because Capital One has a rule that you cannot apply for 2 or more Capital One credit cards in that same 6-month period. And we're actually past that 6-month period, so we're good on that front. Lucia's last credit card application was the Built card in July of 2022. So it's been about 5 months, or in other words, a decent amount of time since her last application. Okay, so now we're gonna get into the full application process for the Venture Recs. What we're gonna do is we're gonna start out with the Capital One pre-approval tool. And the reason that I do this is it's actually gonna give us a pretty good indication on whether Lucia has a decent chance to get approved for the Venture Recs or not. The reason for that is you actually can't use this tool specifically for the Venture Recs, but there's some data points that show that, you know, if she's able to get pre-approved for some of the other Capital One cards, specifically the Capital One Venture card, then she actually might have a pretty good shot at being approved for the Venture Recs as well. So basically all I did is I just typed in Capital One pre-approval tool into Google. This is a landing page that pops up. So first thing I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna click see if I'm pre-approved. So, okay. First question here is what's most important to you? So obviously, since we're going to be applying for the Venture Recs, what's most important is going to be the travel rewards here, but then also the new card member offer. So I'm going to click continue pre-approval. Next up is the legal name. So I'm going to go ahead and type that in and I'll be back with you in a second. Okay, so now it's going to ask us for our address. So I'll go ahead and put that in as well. Okay, so I put in my address. The next thing it's going to ask us is going to be our email address and primary phone number. Okay, so I put in that information. Now it's going to ask for the employment status. So Lucia is currently employed, so I'll put employed and then I'll click next. And then for highest level of education, she does have a bachelor's degree, so I'll select that option. Okay, and now it's gonna ask us for total annual income as well as monthly rent. So for total annual income, since we are married, we're actually gonna be able to utilize all income that's available to us, and since we share our finances, I'll actually be able to put in our total annual income there in the total annual income box. And then I'll put in our monthly rent payment as well. Next, it's gonna ask if you have any bank accounts. So she does have a checking and savings, so I'll put that. And then here's gonna be some of the personal information, so date of birth and social security number. So I'm obviously gonna fill that out and then I'll meet you on the next field. Okay, finally, this is the last step. It's pretty much just gonna ask us to agree to some terms. So I'm gonna click both of these boxes. And then at the bottom, it's gonna see if I'm pre-approved. So click that, validating your information. Really interested to see here because like I said, if she's pre-approved for the venture, that's a good sign. Okay. Okay, so she's pre-approved for these cards. The Saver 1, Quicksilver, Platinum, MasterCard, which is interesting. Okay, so this is interesting. She didn't get pre-approved for the venture, so not sure if that means that she's not gonna get approved for the Venture X, but we're still gonna go for it. We still would love to get this card because it aligns with our travel plans. So we're still gonna go forward with the application and we'll see what happens. Okay, so I do have one of my recent videos pulled up. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna click on my Capital One Venture X link right here. And by the way, I do really appreciate any of you who do use those links. It does directly support my channel. But Lucia is gonna be applying using this link. So she's gonna click learn how to apply. Okay, and then last step, apply now. Cool, all right, it's taking us there right now. But I'm definitely a little bit nervous now because she didn't have the venture as a pre-approval. So not sure, obviously it's not like a guarantee either way on what's actually gonna happen with the Venture X, but definitely nervous. Obviously the Venture X has kind of some stricter applications. A lot of people later in their credit card journey don't actually get approved for it just because of like, they typically like people who are earlier on, and both of us have like 10 cards each. So let's see. So, okay, personal information. So just gonna enter this information really quickly for Lucia's personal info. So give me 1 sec. Okay, so I entered all of that personal information. Now there's some more information to enter. So gonna enter our address, email address, phone number, then I'll click continue as well. Okay, so I entered that personal information. Now we have the financial information. So Lucia is employed, I put employed there. I'm going to enter her occupation. And then we're also gonna enter our total annual income, which is nice because you can basically include any income that's actually available to you. So since we're married and we do have combined finances, we'll be able to put our total combined income there. And then for rent, we'll obviously enter our monthly rent payment. For here, checking and savings for bank account. And then obviously we do never carry any sort of balance on any of our personal credit cards, and I recommend that you do the same. So put never there as well. And then yeah, so I'll go ahead and I'll fill out the occupation, the monthly rent, and the annual income. and then we'll click continue together again. Okay, so I just filled out that financial information. Now it's asking if we want to add any additional cardholders, which is probably a good sign. I mean, I've seen on other credit card applications where once you get to this step, if you do get to this step, it's a good sign because it means that you're probably going to get approved, and then I was just asking if you want to add any cardholders. So I might add myself as a cardholder in the future, but for now I'm not going to. But yeah, that's probably a good sign. I know it's kind of conflicting here because the pre-approval, we didn't get pre-approved for the venture, but now we have the potential cardholders. So it's going to be really interesting to see if we get approved. But for right now, I'm just going to click continue since I don't want to add anyone right now. Okay, so now it's just going to be some of that additional information. So I do want paperless communications, so I'm going to click that box. We're going to do communications in English, and then just some disclosures about the card. But other than that, we're going to click continue. Okay, additional acknowledgements. Yep, submit application. Okay, let's see. It really could go either way. I mean, Capital One Venture X applications are kind of all up in the air. You really never know. But here it comes, reviewing your finances. Okay, processing your application. Happening. Oh, wow. Okay, well, she didn't get pre-approved. She didn't get approved, and I wonder if part of it is because the pre-approval with the venture not actually going through. But dang, that's disappointing. I mean, we were going to be able to use that for our travel plans. Now we'll probably pivot that again as far as we don't need to fly out of DC now because obviously we're not going to be going to the Capital One Lounge. But dang, that is unfortunate. All right, everyone, not the application that I wanted to see. Obviously, the Venture X was going to work perfect for us by going to DC and utilizing the lounge, but obviously we're not going to be able to use the lounge now. I would still love to add the Venture X in the future, but I just don't know if it's going to work out for us since we're both, 10 cards deep each into the credit card game. But I will probably still apply for the Venture X in the future. Maybe I'll try doing so myself. But for right now, we're obviously not going to be able to get the Venture X, but I wanted to be fully transparent with you because these things do happen, especially on an application like the Venture X. It's a little bit flaky. You never really know if they're going to approve you or not. But yeah, I hope you guys all appreciate the transparency. I got denied, which is unfortunate, but all this means is we're going to put all of our spend towards the Chase Income Limited instead. So thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope it was informative and I hope you all appreciated the transparency. But I hope to see you in the next one, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day.